My guest today is CASEY HARTNETT. She is an actor, writer, filmmaker, and activist based out of Chicago and New York. Her producing credits include the films The Crash, starring Minnie Driver and John Leguizamo, 2018's The Wedding, and I Want More, I Want Less. She's the creator of 2 comedy web series tackling taboo women's issues, Period Drama and Unplugged. As an actor, she's appeared opposite Elizabeth Mitchell and James Ranson in the thriller What We Found, as well as in the short film noir thriller Sins. She's best known for her portrayal of Allie in last year's breakout horror hit Terrifier 2. The movie was praised by Stephen King and inspired Mike Flanagan to coin the term Mega-Slasher to describe it. The movie has entered the zeitgeist. When I interviewed fellow castmate Kaylee Hyman, I described it this way. DAMEON LEONE has proved to be a skilled writer, director, and master special effects makeup artist. It's as if he's infused this movie with an undying love for the genre, and the audiences can feel it. But Terrifier 2 would not be the juggernaut it is without its exquisite cast. CASEY's work in this film earned her this year's coveted FANGORIA Chainsaw Award for Best Kill. I could not imagine another best kill that surpasses the now iconic bedroom scene in Terrifier 2. There are a handful of truly iconic moments in horror history: the blob oozing after teenagers fleeing from a movie theater, Reagan's head swiveling around in The Exorcist, or the shark surfacing through the chum line in Jaws, sending Chief Brody to ask for a bigger boat. But I believe you can draw a straight line from the shower scene in Psycho to the bedroom scene in Terrifier 2. Each film was equally shocking for their times, and both are instrumental in turning a page for the genre. This places today's guest solidly in company with Janet Leigh, Linda Blair, and Roy Scheider. CASEY, it's a pleasure to see you.
Hi. Oh my gosh, that comparison just blew my mind. So thank you.
You're welcome. My first question is, where do you keep your chainsaw award?
It is currently upstairs in my bedroom. So yeah.
I believe your parents were Barbara and Daniel. You were born in Chicago and grew up in the Lakeview area, but your father transferred to Paris for work when you were 2 years old. I believe you were in France for a year before your family moved back to the States. What were you like as a child, and what was your childhood like growing up in Paris and Chicago?
Wow. Yeah, so I mean, I was very young in Paris. I was 2, but I think I continued to learn French, and I think that's why, because I started learning French so young, I think that's why I kept learning French, and that it's the only other language I can really communicate in. But yeah, once we came back to the States, I actually started dancing. And so I've been dancing I've been dancing ever since I was 3, really. So I've been on stage since I was 3. I was always very active. I was always dancing or writing scripts, or using my parents' camcorder to make little movies with friends, forcing my brother and cousins to make movies with me. Actually, my brother's birthday is the day before Halloween, so every year on his birthday we would make a little spooky film. It's like a horror comedy is really what they were. And so I was a very active kid. I preferred imagination games to playing Barbies, speaking of Barbie coming out. But yeah, I was always running around, going like barefoot to the park, down the street, climbing trees. Yeah, I don't know, I was a very active kid.
Before the influence of movies, what scared you the most as a child? Was there a ghost in the attic or a monster under the bed?
Actually, I am convinced that our house was haunted, the house I grew up in. It was really old. It's still standing. My parents don't live there anymore. But it was, when I was a kid, it was already 100 years old. And okay. There's this one time where I came in the back door. I was probably 8 years old, and I saw my dad running around the entire downstairs. And I was like, "Dad, what are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I thought I just saw you." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I just thought I saw you in the living room." And I was like, no, I was down the street. I was like, but he's like, I thought I saw a little girl. And I was like, what was she wearing? And he's like, I don't know, white. And convinced he saw a ghost. And I'm convinced there was a little girl ghost who also used to come into my room and move things. Things sometimes would move, like behind my back, like when I wasn't looking. I'd be like, I swear I put this over here on the desk. But and then also my dog used to bark at random, like nothing in the living room. He used to bark at things in the living room. We just like, what is he staring at? What is he barking at? So I'm convinced there was a ghost. Of a
That's
little
fun.
girl.
That's fun. Many kids are first introduced to horror through fairy tales and children's stories like Hansel and Gretel or Three Billy Goats Gruff. Was there a particular children's story that scared or excited you as a child?
That is a good question. I feel like I think, I mean, the Brothers Grimm stories were creepy. So those original fairy tales were always they were scary. And my brother and I were obsessed with oh gosh, there was this, I had books of ghost stories, of horror stories that we would read when we were kids. And I guess I just liked being thrilled by these stories. I'm trying to remember what that book is called. It was called something like In the Dark or something.
Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark?
Yes.
Aha!
And we had, yes, I'm so glad that you remembered that. Because yeah, I had a bunch of those books and would read those stories just to kind of spook ourselves. Like we would read those to spook ourselves. So I don't know, I always found it fun. And I love ghost stories. I should say stories about spirits. Because yeah, and I'm not like scared of it, or I love it because I think we had, like, as I said, I think we had a ghost in the house I grew up in. So I was like super into it.
You start dance class when you're 3 years old, as you mentioned before, and want more and more of it. There's tap, jazz, lyrical, contemporary, then hip hop after ballet, and you eventually start competing. You find the movie Harriet the Spy when you're 5, and it becomes an inspiration for you to write your second. It was an inspiration for you to write. Your second grade journals were called Keep Out, and you filled them with stories that already show a flair for horror. Titles like Shark Attack, Vacuum Attack, and a Halloween story called Dancing Pigs about a potion that makes candy turn kids into pigs. When you're 11, you beg your parents for theater classes. You begin writing plays, and you and your friends perform them. You mentioned those early performances were filmed, and do the films still exist?
Some of them do. We definitely still have one that I made on my brother's birthday, a Halloween story my cousins and I made. It was like my cousin and I, so there's 2 boys and 2 girls. Each family has a boy and a girl of my cousins. So the 2 girls, we come up to the door and we're like, our car broke down. And my brother was like, oh, come inside, like being all creepy and weird. And it was like, we had have a shot of just like a toy car sitting in the driveway. And so it was just, we had fun with it, but that one definitely still exists somewhere on a camcorder VHS tape somewhere.
I've read you are a fan of horror movies and got particularly scared after watching The Grudge alone after school one day. Who introduced you to horror, and did your parents have any restrictions on what you were able to watch as a kid?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, my parents bought the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. My mom bought those books for us. So I guess she used to, like, I don't know, they didn't have like strong restrictions on movies for us to watch. So they tended to let us watch, like not like whatever, but like, they were like, I mean, it's not that bad. So I mean, yeah, The Grudge wasn't that bad to watch as an 11-year-old, I suppose. But yeah, I definitely remember like staying up late one night watching that. And yeah, but I definitely think they just kind of supported, they, they were fine with it.
I read you like movies about, oh, actually, you mentioned it before. You like movies about ghost stories or spirits, haunted houses, and the paranormal. I was going to ask, but you already mentioned it before. What are your thoughts about the paranormal, and have you had any experiences? But I won't ask that because you already mentioned it. One of your first encounters with Art the Clown in Terrifier 2 is when he arrives at your house to trick or treat. What sort of Halloween traditions did you have growing up, other than filming right before filming for your brother's birthday and growing up, and what's your go-to Halloween candy?
Oh, good one. So I would say tradition wise, I mean, we definitely went trick-or-treating every year. My dad actually for a few years would do, he would set up an extravagant thing on our front porch of our house. Like there was one year he dressed up, like wore a mask, dressed up like a scarecrow, like put like straw in his shirt so he looked fake. And then every time a kid would walk up, he would like stand up and the kid would scream. And there was one year where we had fun with it. There was one year where he also was sitting in a cage, like his head was like sticking up through a table in a cage, and the candy bowl was right in front of him, and he looked fake again. He like painted his face and like was just sitting there with his eyes closed. And then every time a kid went to reach into the candy bowl, he would like reach his arms out and scare them. So we had fun with Halloween, definitely. My brother and I used to sort our candy. That was a big thing. So my favorite candy was always something chocolate, and my brother doesn't like chocolate. So we would always compromise and do a trade. He would take, like, I would take all of his chocolate, and he would take, I would give him some gummy, like Starburst or other gummy related candies that he liked. And he always liked the Red Hots and like stuff like that. So I would give him those as well. But yeah, we would always sort our candy and like count our candy afterwards. Yeah.
In 1921, John Verderbar and his son Rudy built an all-wooden open-air dance pavilion less than 3 miles from where you attended high school. It proved so popular in 1923, it was enlarged and a new 10 cents per dance policy was implemented. The Williamson Candy Company paid the Verdebars for the naming rights after their O. Henry Candy Bar, and the O. Henry Ballroom became a wildly popular venue for music and dancing. It was destroyed by a fire in 1930 and reopened in May 1931. Count Basie, Ozzie Nelson, Glenn Miller, and Frank Sinatra would all play there over the years to come. On the evening of July 20th, 1927, Anna Maria or Mary Norcus begged her father, August, to take her to the famous O. Henry Dance Hall to celebrate her 13th birthday. It was a Wednesday. After dancing all evening, they left the ballroom and headed for home at approximately 1:30 in the morning. There, they were passing the Resurrection Cemetery via Archer Avenue when the car careened and dropped into a 25-foot railroad cut. Anna was killed instantly. In the years to follow, there have been reports of people seeing a young blonde woman wearing a white ball gown and dancing shoes. As the story goes, she'd meet with a lonely guest at the dance hall, and after a night of dancing, she'd ask for a ride home, slipping into the back seat and guiding her driver up Archer Avenue. But by the time the car reaches the area near Resurrection Cemetery, she would vanish without a trace. This urban legend has become known as Resurrection Mary. I researched the vanishing hitchhiker urban legend for my interview with film director Aaron B. Kuntz. It turns out the oldest known report of the vanishing hitchhiker dates back to February 3rd, 1602. It was a Sunday. And what makes this case stand out are the number of documented accounts. It was not uncommon for witnesses to give reports to the police department in the town of Justice near the cemetery. Dozens of reports would come in over the years, but the most famous was from a Chicagoan named Jerry Pallas in 1939, who claimed he was with Mary's ghost from the dance hall to the cemetery where he says she disappeared. He adamantly stood by his story until his death in 1992. Ironically, he's buried at the Resurrection Cemetery. Did you ever hear about Resurrection Mary, or were there other urban legends you heard about when you were growing up in Chicago?
So I think I've heard of it. I really didn't know that full story. That is so interesting. And I know where Archer Avenue is in Chicago, but we used to do the Bloody Mary thing, like at sleepovers, you know, where you'd go in front of the mirror and say, if you said it 3 times, she would appear, and we were all so scared to do it. I don't think she ever appeared for anyone who did say it 3 times, but that was a big one that we used to do at sleepovers to scare ourselves. I'm trying to think if there's any others that I think, like, there are some really old, even in the suburb that I grew up in, there are some really old buildings and houses that we were convinced were haunted. Yeah, so I mean, there were little things like that, and we'd always like try to scare ourselves with, you know, going towards going to those buildings. None of them were like necessarily abandoned, but yeah, we were just like, oh, this is a really old building, like you should go at night see if you can be a ghost. But yeah, I don't know, just little things, nothing too crazy.
You attended Hinsdale Central High School on
My
Grant Street, known as Central to the locals. It was founded as a single classroom in 1879. The main building there now was dedicated in 1950. The school colors are red and black. You were a cheerleader for the football Palms, and the basketball Palms. Go Red Devils. You were a member of the drama club and performed as the character Carla Leslie in the play The People versus Maxine Lowe. What were you like in high school, and how much of your high school experience do you think informs who you are today? And for the audience, that is you.
Is that me?
Yeah, that one's
Wow, where did you find that? I'm like,
I have my secrets.
let's see. I was a dancer. So I mean, I had been a competitive dancer all throughout middle school, and then when I got to high school, I wanted to do our school's dance team. So that was nice. But I did a mix of dance team and cheerleading and things like that. I was always, when I did cheerleading, the bit of time that I did that, I was always the flyer. I was little, so I was the one they threw in the air, which was super fun. But yeah, I did theater as well. I did do that one play. I played the court reporter in The People versus Maxine Lowe, and it was funny because she's supposed to be an older woman, so I was like walking really slow, and I had like wrinkles and gray hair, like wrinkles drawn onto my face. But I did theater at the Theater of Western Springs, which is nearby. So I was definitely a theater kid, but the theater was my second home. My dance studio was my second home, and then the theater became my second home. And I always looked forward to Thursdays because I got to go be with the weirdos at my theater after school, and I loved it so much. And yeah, so I did plays throughout high school as well as dancing, but I also did like the student council and things like that. I was my 8th grade class president, and then I ran for like the student council in high school, and I think I did it 1 or 2 years in high school. So I was very active in that way, and I think that informs my activism that I've been a part of now. I was always like, yeah, let's do things and be active. And I was like, I don't know, like help our school with stuff. I don't know. But so I liked being active and involved in activities. So yeah.
In an age of bullies, active shooter drills, and COVID lockdowns, do you think horror movies can provide catharsis for teenagers trying to cope with these real life fears?
I do. I do. I mean, I can't, it's so different from when I was in high school. And I feel lucky almost that I didn't have to do as many, drills where I was ducking under my desk. For us, that meant a tornado. Like it didn't mean an active shooter. So, but I do think that horror films, the way that it's almost a heightened sense of fear. It's something that is just so far out there that we can't even imagine experiencing necessarily. It's so scary, and it can actually ease these senses of anxiety and stress in people, because as they're watching them, it's almost like it's worse than, and I think the adrenaline of it also can really kind of be kind of a release for people as well while watching it. So I do think that there is something to be said about horror films and helping to ease anxiety in people because of how crazy horror films can be,
So during this time, you're learning and performing at what you mentioned earlier, the Theater of Western Springs, where you take classes for advanced acting, acting for the camera, comedic acting, improvisation, and movement. Under the guidance of Laura Diley, Trip Burton, and Joe Savino, you act in productions of The Big Friendly Giant, Harriet the Spy, and Charlotte's Web. I read you were able to do a Cockney accent as part of your training. Sorry in advance, but would you mind saying something so I can hear your Cockney accent?
I had to do a line in an audition once when I was younger. I can't remember, but the character would like start talking in a Cockney accent, and she'd be like, my other nervous habit, you see." So she'd like be like a nervous habit of hers where she'd just be starting to do a Cockney accent. That was kind of bad, but I haven't done it in a while, but
That was great. That was just what I expected. After high school, you signed with Lily's talent agency and continue your studies at the University of Iowa, where you earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in Communication and Media Studies, Cinematography, and Film Television Production. College is a busy time for you. In addition to your studies, you are organizing fundraisers for the Residence Hall. You're a sales model at Abercrombie and Fitch, and you begin writing, directing, and acting in short films. You write and direct several short films like On Separate Lines and Dans le Mois de la Mémoire. I hope I didn't butcher that. Acting roles include several short films as well as parts on the television series Entrusted, The Mob Doctor, Dark Wings, and your first feature role is opposite Brandon Baker in The Formula. You leave college and the nickname Case McChase and a Volkswagen Jetta named Susan. After college, you co-produce an independent film called The Crash with the actress Mary McCormick. Horror fans would know her from the movie 1408. Isn't she the reason you moved to New York, and what roles have mentors played in your career?
Good question. Yeah, I mean, that is a lot. You have done your research. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, when I was working on The Crash, I co-produced The Crash, but I was driving her and Frank Grillo to the airport on their last day of shooting, after their last day, and she stopped. She was kind of like, just, so what do you want to do? What are your goals? What do you want to do in industry? And I was like, well, I'm an actor, and I know I've been training and just graduated college. So I was kind of deciding where I wanted to go next. I was debating New York and LA. I had a lot of people telling me to go to LA, and she was like, oh, she got so excited. She's like, oh, I want to be an actor. Here's what you do. Go to New York. And she wrote down some schools for me. She's like, I studied here. These are some other acting schools that are really good. She wrote them all down, and I reached out to the school she studied at, because I went after doing my research. I was like, this seems like a good place. And I had been studying Meisner in Chicago, and the school, the William Esper Studio, is a Meisner school. So I decided to stick with that. And I interviewed with them, got accepted into their classes, and kind of went from there. But yeah, she was super nice to do that. I mean, even when, and your acting teachers are the best mentors also. So Suzanne Esper was my acting teacher at the Esper Studio. Her husband, Bill Esper, was the other, founder of the school, of course. They both had studied with, they both knew, had known Sanford Meisner. So like, she was just really great, because just a really great way to introduce myself to the city of New York from not being there, from not being from there, sorry. But yeah, and then I would say too, even working with Elizabeth Mitchell, she was very, very nice, and very, she was willing to talk to me about just about acting and about her experiences and things like that. So it's really nice when people are just willing to, to sort of share their story with you and sort of give advice, but also everyone's path is so unique to who they are on their own journey. So, but I would say Elizabeth Mitchell is another one who was really great to work with, because she was also just really, she was just willing to chat and just share her story with me. So yeah.
You've said the first year in New York was a wave of experiences, emotions, and self-exploration. You moved to New York on the Upper East Side and enroll in acting classes at, where you just mentioned, the prestigious William Esper Studio. Over the next 7 years, you'll move from Manhattan to Ridgewood, Queens, then Central Harlem, and back to Queens. But you said your notion of what it meant to be an actor changed in that first year. Then in the summer of 2015, you set out from Harlem alone in your Volkswagen named Susan on a 23-day trip to explore 11 cities from coast to coast. You drove the Mississippi Delta and hiked the Grand Canyon. You canoed to Louisiana Bayou at sunset and peed behind a boulder overlooking the most beautiful beach along the Pacific Coast Highway. You wrote about this trip in a blog titled The Art of Loneliness. In it, you say loneliness in itself can be an artistic experience. Your experiences, the people you meet, the places you see, all become a part of who you are, and no one is there to fully understand it with you. Since this is the case, do you find you feel more isolated when you travel alone for filming, conventions, or your blog?
More alone. I would say, well, definitely alone when I'm solo traveling, because I am forced to meet new people, which I think is great. You're also in a new place outside of your comfort zone. You don't have, you're the only one kind of dictating, this is where I'm going to stay, this is what I'm going to eat for dinner, I'm going to go here, and you meet people along the way. But I would say, yeah, when you travel for filming and conventions, there are people who you already know are going to be there. You're going to have someone to connect with. So I definitely think solo traveling is, it's the most alone, but it's also it can lead to really magical things. I've had really magical experiences just about everywhere. On that road trip, everything was pretty magical there. I had a magical experience with a new friend in New Orleans about like last year. At one point, I had gone for an event, and I met this new woman at a tour of an art gallery, and we ended up in this like wonderland house just by by happenstance. It was bizarre, but like magical, I really do think that magical things can happen when you put yourself out there in the world. So you are alone, but there's constantly people around you, unless you're literally in the middle of nowhere, like in the movie Wild or Into the Wild. But I mean, there, even when you're hiking, like in the movie Wild, I've noticed even when I'm hiking, I will meet people along the way, and because I know people are like, oh, you shouldn't hike alone. I do sometimes hike alone, but you meet people, you see other hikers along the trail, and you'll pass each other, and you'll see someone stop to eat a sandwich, and then they'll catch up with you later because you stopped to eat a sandwich, and it just becomes a community. So I do think humans are very community based, and even when traveling solo, it's a really powerful thing. Yeah.
I read your mother worked at Erie House, a nonprofit that assists in low-income immigrant families in Chicago. Back in New York, you become an advocate for the homeless and women's rights. Your work with the Breaking Ground organization has you finding transitional housing for the homeless. Then your art merges with your activism when you co-create the comedy sketch web series Period Drama about women on their periods taking place in different time periods. This led you running the New York chapter of #HappyPeriod, which raises money to provide menstrual products to the homeless. It's a cause you're very passionate about. I believe you even went on a 2-week bike tour to raise money and awareness for it. How has this activism influenced your work as an actor, director, or in your writing?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, for me as a writer and a filmmaker, I have sort of made it my, I guess you could say my mission, but it's just always been something that's important to me to tell honest stories about women. And you know, I'm a woman, so it's like, you know, it's based off of, you know, things that I write can be very personal. It can be based off of real experiences, or inspired by those experiences. So for me, I mean, through period drama, and then the pilot I wrote called Unplugged was about a first period. And then from there, the other projects I'm writing are everything from things related to the Me Too movement to, you know, other just taboo issues related to women's rights, in story format, of course. But so as a writer and a filmmaker, that's very important to me. As an actor, it is also important to me that the characters I play are fully formed humans. You know, not really someone who likes to go out for like, oh, hot girl #1 at the party, or things like that. So I do, when choosing characters that excite me, it's, you know, I want it to be a fully formed human who is exciting and has, you know, has a full life going on in the film. Even if it's a small part, you can always tell. It's just like, you tell the type of human that person is. So yeah, sometimes for women, especially the smaller roles, like when you're just starting out, it could be like, oh, we just need like a girl at a party to act like she's, you know, drunk or whatever. Sorry, but like it can be little like that, and you're just like, okay, do I really want to do that? So it has definitely informed that the stories I want to tell really it's more so informed me as a writer, I think, than anything else. That's why I started my blog also, is to share women's stories from around the world. So yeah.
Let's talk about Terrifier 2.
Yes.
First, will you take a moment about how Felissa Rose may be one of the nicest people on the planet? Isn't she just great?
She is. She honestly is one of the kindest humans I've ever met. Yeah, yep, she is.
Yeah. I think the movie is fearless, and part of its success is that it delivers where other movies don't. I don't mean delivers on gore and violence, although it certainly checks those boxes. I think it delivers on that catharsis we spoke about before. Most genre movies chase or flirt with the scares. Your scene demands everyone's attention and brings the audience right to the edge. Then in your final moment, art pushes us off the cliff when we witness the unthinkable. But Damien Leone gives us a soft landing. The fantasy aesthetic, the synthesizer music, and the gallows humor quickly reminds us we're safe and it's only a movie. As a result, the audience has a similar experience to some of the best roller coasters. They're thrilled, shaken, laughing, and some of them are throwing up in the corner. Why do you think this movie has been met with so much love in the mainstream, where children are dressing up like the Pale Girl and their parents are dressed like Art the Clown?
Yeah, I just think there's something so fun about it. And I do think that Art the Clown himself is, I mean, it's such an iconic character and it's such a fun character, even as horrific as it is, like, even though it's a slasher movie. I mean, there's something about Art the Clown that is also comedic at the same time. So I think that is really rare, rare to find in slasher movies, like a really solid mix of silent horror mixed with comedic acting that David Howard Thornton does so brilliantly. So I do think that stands out, and it's also just a fun ride. The whole movie is such a fun ride. The characters are fun in Terrifier and Terrifier 2. I mean, the characters are fun. You know, the women, I mean, fight back as much as possible. I mean, let's be real, Jenna Cannell and Lauren Lavera are both fierce fighters in real life, martial artists, and whatever else they do, kickboxing, I don't know, but they're both really fierce and badass. And so I think that is a really cool thing for young fans to look up to have characters like that in these movies. So I just think, and the little pal girl as well, like, you know, kind of going off of working the way Amelie works off of David, where they work together, and the way, like, Amelie is just brilliant as well, and she's so young. And so I think it's also fun for younger audiences to have another cool young character to like to be thrilled by. You know, I'm like, yeah. So, and Sienna to look up to, the little pal girl, to just be like, oh, that's really cool to see a girl doing that, to do something scary, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. The synth pop soundtrack lends a great deal to the movie's aesthetic. Do you think more songs have been written about love, lust, or heartbreak?
Love, lust, or heartbreak. More songs. Oh gosh, I feel like, probably just love. Probably just love. I feel like lust and heartbreak are really specific parts of a romance, but I think like love is, yeah, that's your question, right? Which
Yeah,
one?
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, you got it.
I would guess love. More songs about love. Yeah, which is good. It says humanity is love, right?
Yeah, good choice. Dee Wallace was a guest on What's Under the Bed, and she's a friend to the show. She says an actor's body doesn't know it's pretending and undergoes the stress of a scene as if it were real. Was there anything you needed to do to recover from this role, either physically or emotionally?
I mean, definitely when you are going through heavy emotions while filming, it's definitely good to take time to decompress a bit. I had more of a moment when I was being chased by Art the Clown. And then when we were filming the actual kill scene, we filmed it in parts, by like prosthetic by prosthetic. So
Mhm.
it was easier to decompress in between
Mhm.
filming each effect, because we did have time in
Mhm.
between to set up the other effect, add the prosthetic, and it took time.
Mhm.
But yeah, when we were doing the chase scene where Art chases me, Allie, up the from the kitchen up the stairs, that was really emotionally, that got to me, because I was like,
Mhm.
oh my God, I am about to die. And I did, Amy Russ, who plays my mom, was there as
Mhm.
well. And she, I was I started crying, and she was kind of like, okay. And she kind of just breathed with me, and just,
Mhm.
we just decompressed from that. But yeah, I mean, it does, it does, you are, using your emotions in a specific way, to be as truthful as possible for the scene. But there's also a little part of you that knows it's not real. So like, you're going to be safe. I
Mhm.
think physically, you're going to be safe, but emotionally, you just let it go. Breathe,
Yeah.
breathe into it and just let it go. But physically, you're not really dying.
Yeah.
Mentally, that, but yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
David Howard Thornton plays Art the Clown with humor, which makes him scarier and more unpredictable. Do you think comedies are better than horror, or age better than horror movies, or is it the other way around?
I think horror movies age better than comedy, because there's a lot of comedy now that is not aging very well, because a lot of the jokes are either considered too sexist or racist or homophobic or whatever. And it proves slightly problematic sometimes.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, I've always been a fan of the show Friends, but
Mhm.
some of the jokes on Friends are not aging very well. Um, so I still love the show, but like, it's some of the things you notice and you're like, we wouldn't say that nowadays. Like,
Yeah.
we wouldn't say this joke today.
Yeah.
So I do actually think comedy is not aging as well as horror. Yeah.
It's been It's been several movies now, and Art the Clown has a hard time staying dead. You know what else has a hard time staying dead? Zombies. Do you prefer fast zombies or slow zombies?
Oh God, slow zombies. Fast zombies are too scary. Oh my God, no. No.
um,
No.
we met at Days of the Dead in Atlanta. How's your experience been with people at these conventions? Have you had any strange fan encounters yet?
I have. I don't want to like single anyone out.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely some interesting things. I mean, I will say one thing that I was not expecting is to even just
Hmm.
receive a gift from someone. I mean, whether
Hmm.
that's like a flower or a teddy bear or like whatever.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, it's really nice. I just was not expecting that. But I mean, I have really enjoyed the conventions though. I think it is nice it is,
Mhm.
I mean, as someone who's not used to being a part of something that has a fandom, because I'm so in the indie film world where, it's like you go to film festivals, other filmmakers watch your movie, and that's
Yeah.
the community. So being a part of something that does have a fandom has been really fun,
Hmm.
and really just very grateful for that. It's
Hmm.
really, I'm honored that people are, like the movie and like the characters and things like that. It's very flattering. So and very humbling as well. So
Yeah.
it's been really nice to meet people who genuinely appreciate the work that you've done. And
Yeah.
that's really nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah. The reason I asked if you've had any strange fan encounters is apparently Kaylee got a tooth.
Oh,
Kaylee just got a tooth.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I did. I think someone else may have gotten a tooth as well, but I'm like, did I get a tooth?
More than one person got a tooth?
I think yes, more than one
Oh
person.
my God.
I think I may have also gotten a tooth. More than one person received a tooth.
What? What?
Yes,
What's going
I
on?
did. I did receive a tooth. Not my head. That was in Jan. It was it was like
Yeah.
months
Yeah,
ago.
it was the same convention we met. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
That's true. It happened.
Um, are there any projects you have coming that you can talk about?
Yeah, I do. So I did film a short film that should be released this year. They're kind of finishing up post-production in the next month. It's called Live, Laugh, Love. It is a short horror film. I play a very different character. I'm more on the villain side this time, which is fun. But and then I do have a couple other projects that I think I would be able to talk about soon, but I don't know. So there are a couple other films in the works, which is exciting. So hopefully, we're supposed to film those this year. So that should be fun. But yeah, I mean, the short film should be released this year. So that'll be fun. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Where can people find you, by the way?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm on Instagram. That's probably the place I'm most active. It's just my name, CASEY HARTNETT. I do have a Facebook like actor page that I try to remember to post on. So I do post. And I am on Twitter. I am also sporadic on Twitter, but I am, and I have a TikTok account that I post sporadically on as well. The Twitter is the Case McChase. It's my college nickname. And then, yeah, the TikTok is, it's CASEY HARTNETT 2. TikTok just decided to like add that number, and I created my account and was like, I don't know how to change it. So I'm CASEY HARTNETT 2 now. So there we go. So yeah.
This last question is a Sophie's choice. Two must die so that one may live. The movie Parent Trap, Harriet the Spy, or the Tennessee Williams play The Glass Menagerie. Specifically the play. Two of those must die so that one may live.
Two of those have to go.
Yeah, have to disappear from the planet completely.
Oh, that's hard. Why would you do this to me?
I must see my guests suffer.
I love Lindsay Lohan, and I love her life right now that she's thriving. But I have to nix the Parent Trap to the other two. And then even though I was obsessed with the Parent Trap, as well as I was obsessed with Harriet the Spy when I was a kid, to the point where I wrote a script of the Parent Trap and performed it with my friends. And I played Annie because I wanted to do a British, I played Hallie because I wanted to do a British accent anyway. Whole thing. Love it, but I think I'm gonna have to keep gosh, the Glass Menagerie is so I don't know. It's such a well-known play, of course, but I think if it didn't exist, I would hate that. So I think for me, I'm gonna have to keep the Glass Menagerie and kill the other two, only because I do think the Glass Menagerie is a very important play, and it was very important to me as well. I played Laura when I was in acting school, and I have a very strong connection to that play in general. The fact of how much Tennessee Williams loves his sister and wrote that play for his sister, who is essentially Laura. It's just really sweet and heartbreaking at the same time. So, and the unicorns, glass unicorns, gotta love that. So yeah, I think I would have to keep that, but the other two will be very missed. Yeah.
Is there anything you want to ask me before we're done?
Oh, that's nice. Okay. What's your life story? No, I'm just kidding. Let's see. What was your favorite scene from Terrifier?
Oh my goodness. Oh goodness. I mean, it kind of has to be the bedroom scene. Just yeah, it just kind of has to be. Close second is Kaylee's character. Now I'm forgetting her name. Brooke.
Yes.
Brooks. That death scene.
Yeah.
Those two death scenes are like really close tie.
I know.
Extremely close tie, but the bedroom scene kind of has to win just because of what it is.
Well, thank you. I mean, but yeah, her death scene was crazy as well, and
Yeah.
Kaylee's so good. So I'm a big fan of her.
Yeah. If you had fun, please tell Damien. Sorry. Thank you for sitting down with me. I had a blast.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. This was great.